Unless you're a celebrity, influencer, or part of a podcast network, chances are you are dealing with the same predicament as many other indie podcasters. How do I grow my audience beyond the current size? None of my promotional efforts are working. My audience isn't growing. I get it. We've all been there. This is why in this video, I will go over 2 very important elements of your promotion strategy you may be overlooking and how to master them so you can keep growing your podcast audience. Hello and welcome to the Pod Sound School channel, the place to be for all things podcasting. From planning and audio production to promotion and content strategy, in our channel you can find all the things you need to create a high-quality podcast. One of the most common complaints I hear from new podcasters and longtime podcasters is how hard it is to grow their audience. It doesn't matter how popular your show is or how many downloads you have, you'll always be looking for ways to grow your audience. Well, let's find a solution together. But before we move on, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell button to be notified of our weekly video releases. Also, if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Okay, let's get to it. If your audience is not growing, it may be because of 2 reasons. Well, assuming that you have all the other pieces running smoothly, like good quality audio and great content. Number one, because podcasting is relatively new, you may be speaking a different language than your audience, meaning that they may not even know what a podcast is, they're not familiar with the different podcast players, and they don't know how to find your podcast. And number 2, you haven't established a strong brand around your podcast. So let's tackle number 1. Let's bring people into podcasting. According to statistics published earlier this year, only 52% of the American population have listened to a podcast at least once. Podcasting is growing, but 48% of people in the US don't know what a podcast is, how to find it, and how to listen to it. And this percentage may be even bigger in countries where podcasting is still pretty much in its infancy. What these percentages mean to you is that you may have people in your niche who don't know how to find and listen to your podcast. So what do? Something I recommend my clients to do is to make little video tutorials showing their audience the step-by-step of how to find and play their podcast. And if you want to take it one step further, you can make a little promo video sharing all the details of your show and also showing the different podcast players they can play episodes from. Once you have your videos ready, you can post them on your social media, website, or share them directly with people if they're curious about your show. Also, if your podcast is on Twitter or Instagram, make sure you include a video showing people in those platforms how to find the link in your bio with a landing page you create with all the links to your podcast episodes. This will make it easy for your followers to listen to your show without leaving those platforms. Now, you don't have to overcomplicate this task or hire a film crew or a video editor to make these videos. You can make them with your phone or computer by simply taking a screen grab. But don't be afraid to take it up a notch and use any video editing software to add arrows, text bubbles, and brand colors. Also, don't be afraid to go step by step and be very specific with your instructions. Your audience will thank you for simplifying something that they didn't get but were too embarrassed to ask. You may also want to include step-by-step instructions in your episodes on how to share, comment, and rate your podcast. Pick 1 or 2 platforms you want to send your listeners to and make sure that you include the link to the show notes in your episode. Try to simplify this process as much as you can for your current listeners so they can become ambassadors of your show, helping you grow your audience. If they like your show, believe me, they'll do it for you. So let's go after those undiscovered ears and turn them into podcast fanatics. Another factor that may be contributing to not growing your audience is not having a strong brand around your podcast. Podcast listeners have a lot of options to choose from when they're browsing the podcast players. As of today, there are over 1 million podcasts, and the number keeps growing exponentially. So how do you stand out from the crowd? Well, the answer is great content and, you guessed it, branding. With only so many hours in a day and so many different options, we have to compete fiercely for the listener's attention. So our job is to catch their attention, get them to click or tap on our podcast, and provide them with the best experience we can. So how do we catch their attention? Whether they're on social media or scrolling down the different podcast players to find a new show to listen to, well, you can do this by having a strong brand. Have you ever heard the saying, content is king? That is not the case. Content and branding is king. Content without branding is just noise. So you may be wondering, what is branding and why it's so important? Branding is everything that contributes to your listeners' opinions and feelings about your podcast. Branding in podcasting is built of word of mouth, based on the listener satisfaction and trying to create a perception through online presence. The image you create around your podcast is called brand identity. A listener's perception of your show is the podcast brand image. It's everything a listener associates with and defines her overall opinion. A strong brand is important because it increases people's awareness and loyalty to your show. It also increases the likelihood of them sharing your podcast with more people. You want to create an emotional response from your listeners towards your show when they listen and see your content online. By listening to your podcast, listeners learn about you, your personality, your habits, your opinions and values, and your unique way to create an experience for them. And most importantly, they learn to trust you and your podcast becomes part of their routine. Branding and podcasting are glued together. A podcast without an identifiable brand is destined to be buried and forgotten at the bottom of popularity lists. A podcast with a strong brand will attract listeners and fans who want to be part of your special club. And if you want to learn more about branding and podcasting, I teach it in more detail in my course, Smart and Sexy Podcast Launch. This course is designed for beginner podcasters and will help you launch a good quality podcast with a strong brand and social media presence. You can find more information at podcastingsmart.com. The link is in the description of this video. You see the importance of branding now? With that being said, let me share a few tips to help you establish your podcast brand. Tip number 1. Do you have an elevator pitch for your podcast? Imagine you're at a party and somebody hears you saying you have a podcast. This person approaches you and asks you what your podcast is about. What would you say? Do you have a clear and concise answer for this question? But you don't want to have this elevator pitch ready only to impress people at social gatherings. Include this elevator pitch in every single episode. You want your listeners to remember what your podcast is about, so when people ask what podcast they're listening to, they repeat your elevator pitch. Make sure it's short, sweet, and to the point. A good example of this is The Secret Room, one of my favorite podcasts. Every episode, the host repeats his podcast elevator pitch. Welcome to The Secret Room, a podcast about the stories no one ever tells. Tip number 2. Is the name of your podcast easy to pronounce and easy to spell? Does it tell the audience what your podcast is about, or at least gives a hint? You want your listeners to be able to easily remember the name of your show so they can share it with other people. Also, the name has to be searchable. Google is making its algorithm more friendly to podcasts. Very recently, they added playable links in search results. For example, if you look for the Pad Sound School podcast, you will find in the first page the 3 last episodes of the podcast. And you can play those episodes from there. If you click on the episode, you will be taken to a page with the show notes. Tip number 3, audio branding. Branding is not only associated with the elements of your brand that we can see, but also the music and sound bites you include in your episodes. After all, podcasting is a medium of audio. What kind of music are you using in your show? Are you being consistent and using the same music in every episode? If you are thinking about adding music to your show, make sure the music adds to the listener experience and it's also in tune with your brand. Tip number 4. Does your podcast have a consistent structure? Your listeners, like all of us humans, are creatures of habit. And when we find a podcast we like and become regular listeners, we want the same structure in each episode. And by structure, I mean we want the episode length to be consistent. If you include segments in your podcast, don't stop including them. If ads and sponsorships are read by you, stick to that format, etc. Tip number 5. Having a strong promotion strategy. Once we have our podcast brand established, it's time to put our podcast in front of as many people as we possibly can. Now, chances are you don't have a big budget for advertisement. But don't worry, here's a list of affordable and free ways to promote your podcast. Use traditional media like TV and radio. Contact your local TV and radio stations. These outlets are always looking for stories and content for their viewers and listeners. Also, social media paid ads are a great alternative. We've run ads on Facebook and Instagram for our services and podcasts with very good results. When you create an ad, you can target certain audiences and use specific keywords. You can also find influencers in your niche, even better if they're already listeners of your show. Look for ways to get them to endorse your show. You may also want to create big event releases for upcoming great episodes. And lastly, repurpose your podcast episodes into blog posts and embed your episodes in your blogs and share them on social media. This will help with your SEO too. And if you want to get more ideas on how to promote your podcast, I have this video right here that will take you through some other creative and fun ways to put your podcast in front of more listeners. Okay, Potskis, I hope I got you all excited and ready to start building your podcast brand. Remember that content and branding is king. Stay tuned for future videos. And until then, no olviden hacer la tarea and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Happy casting, amigos!